Take all 5 of us." The woman's voice cut through the November snow like a blade. Nathan Mercer stared at the 5 exhausted riders on his porch, their eyes hollow with desperation. Behind them, somewhere in the mountains, a killer was coming. A man who had murdered their husbands. A man who owned judges, sheriffs, and politicians. A man who would burn the world to get what he wanted. Nathan had been alone for 8 years, dead inside, waiting to die. But when he looked at the dark-haired woman standing between him and danger, the way she positioned herself as a shield, he saw his own wife, the one he'd failed to protect. This time would be different. "You'll stay," Nathan heard himself say. "All of you." He didn't know it yet, but those words would start a war. This is the story of how 6 broken people became a family, and how they fought the devil himself to keep it. The November snow came early to Colorado that year. It fell in heavy silent sheets across Blackwood Ranch, covering the brown grass and dark pines in a blanket of white that made everything look clean, pure, like the world had been given a chance to start over. Nathan Mercer stood on the front porch of the house his brother had left him, a half-empty bottle of whiskey dangling from his right hand. He was 52 years old, though the lines carved deep into his weathered face made him look older. Gray streaked through his dark hair at the temples. His hands were calloused from work, scarred from old wounds, the kind of hands that had built things and broken things in equal measure. Behind him the house stretched out vast and empty. 8 bedrooms upstairs, a kitchen built for feeding a family, a living room with a fireplace that could heat the whole ground floor, all of it empty now, all of it echoing with ghosts. 3 years since Jeremiah died. 3 years of Nathan living alone in a house meant for people who loved each other. Before that, 5 years drifting from one ranch job to another, never staying anywhere long enough to remember why he left. And before that, 8 years of something worse than loneliness. 8 years of waking up every morning and wondering why he was still breathing when the people who deserved life were cold in the ground. Nathan took a long pull from the whiskey bottle. It burned going down, but the burn was good. It was something to feel that wasn't guilt or grief or the endless hollow ache of surviving when you should have died instead. The lawyer who gave him the deed to Blackwood Ranch had said something strange, something Nathan hadn't understood at the time. "Your brother left specific instructions. He wanted you to have this place, said you would know what to do with it when the time came." Nathan had thought it was just lawyer talk, meaningless sentiment dressed up in formal language. Jeremiah had always been good with words, good with people, good at understanding things Nathan never quite figured out. That was why Jeremiah had been a federal marshal and Nathan had been a soldier. Jeremiah protected people with laws and badges. Nathan protected people with guns and violence. Both of them had failed in the end. The sound of hoofbeats pulled Nathan from his thoughts. He straightened his free hand, moving instinctively to his hip, where a pistol rested in a worn leather holster. Old habits from his Army Ranger days. Always armed, always ready, always too late. Through the falling snow, 5 figures emerged from the tree line. 5 riders on tired horses moving slowly up the long dirt road that led to the ranch house. Even from a distance, Nathan could see they were women, could see the way they sat their saddles with exhaustion weighing down every movement. He set the whiskey bottle on the porch railing and waited. His hand stayed near the pistol, not threatening, just careful. 3 years alone in these mountains had taught him that visitors were rare, and rare things were usually trouble. The riders drew closer. 5 women ranging in age from maybe late 20s to early 40s. Their clothes were dirty, travel-stained. Their faces were drawn with fatigue and something else, something Nathan recognized from his own mirror, the look of people who had run as far as they could and found themselves with nowhere left to go. The woman in front was perhaps 38, with dark hair pulled back from a face that might have been beautiful if it wasn't so hollowed out by exhaustion. Green eyes met Nathan's without flinching. Behind her rode a younger woman with red hair and the kind of fierce blue eyes that promised violence to anyone who got too close. Then a blonde who looked fragile but held herself with surprising steadiness. A brunette who studied Nathan with calculating intensity, like she was already planning 3 different ways to kill him if necessary. And finally an older woman with auburn hair going gray who had the bearing of someone who had been a mother once and would never quite stop being one. The dark-haired woman in front brought her horse to a stop at the base of the porch steps. She looked up at Nathan with those green eyes and said 5 words that would change everything. "Take all 5 of us." Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. The way she said it, the flat desperation in her voice. It sounded like an offer, like a proposition. 5 women and 1 man and a house too big for any of them. But then he saw the way she stood. One arm extended slightly to the side, positioned between him and the 4 women behind her. Protective, defensive, ready to throw herself in front of whatever came next. And Nathan recognized that stance, had seen it before. Anna had stood like that once, 8 years ago, when their 5-year-old daughter Claire had wandered too close to a spooked horse. Anna had moved between the child and the danger without thinking her body a shield, her love a weapon against the world that wanted to hurt what she protected. Nathan pushed the memory down, pushed it into the dark place where he kept all the things that would kill him if he let them out. "What kind of take?" His voice came out rough, rusty from disuse. He talked to himself sometimes out here, but that was different. That was just noise to fill the silence. This was communication. This required thought. The dark-haired woman's shoulders dropped slightly, relief she couldn't quite hide. "Not what you're thinking, mister. We're not offering that. We're offering work. 1 year of free labor in exchange for shelter. All 5 of us. We can cook, clean, tend animals, mend fences, anything you need. We don't need wages. Just a roof and food until we figure out what comes next." Nathan studied them more carefully now. 5 widows, he thought. Something about the way they held themselves, the way they moved together like a unit that had learned to function in the absence of the men who used to lead. He knew that look, had seen it in war, survivors who had lost the people they were supposed to protect. "Why here?" Nathan asked. "Why me?" The dark-haired woman exchanged glances with the others. Some silent communication passed between them. Then she looked back at Nathan and said, "We were told to come here, told that the man who owned this ranch was someone we could trust, someone who would understand what it means to need shelter when the world wants you dead." "Who told you that?" "Marshal William Hayes." Nathan felt his breath catch. Hayes. He knew that name. Jeremiah had mentioned him once or twice, called him one of the few honest federal marshals left in Colorado, one of the few men willing to stand up to power when power needed standing up to. "Hayes knows about this place?" Nathan asked. "Knew your brother," the woman said. "Said Jeremiah Mercer was the best man he ever met. Said if anyone would help us, it would be his family." Nathan felt something twist in his gut. Jeremiah, always trying to save people, always putting himself between the innocent and the cruel. And look where it got him. A body at the bottom of Red Ridge Cliff. An accident, the sheriff said. Just a tragic fall during a hunting trip. But Nathan had never believed that. Jeremiah was too careful, too smart. He knew these mountains better than anyone. He didn't fall. "Come inside," Nathan heard himself say. The words came out before he could think them through, before he could remember all the reasons why he should send these women away, why he should stay alone in his empty house with his whiskey and his ghosts and his slowly fading will to keep breathing. But something in the dark-haired woman's eyes stopped him, something in the way the 5 of them stood together, supporting each other, ready to face whatever came next as a unit. They reminded him of something, not Anna and Claire, not exactly, but something close. Something about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves, about being the wall between the vulnerable and the violent. Maybe Jeremiah had been right. Maybe Nathan did know what to do with this place when the time came. The women dismounted slowly, stiffly. Days in the saddle, Nathan thought. Maybe weeks. Running from something or someone. They tied their horses to the porch railing and followed Nathan inside, carrying their few possessions in worn travel bags. The house was cold. Nathan had let the fire die down to embers. What was the point of warmth for one man who didn't feel anything anyway? But now, with 6 people crowded into the front hall, the space felt different. Less empty, less like a tomb. "Coffee," Nathan said. It wasn't a question, just a statement of what came next. He led them to the kitchen, a massive room with a long wooden table that could seat 12. Jeremiah had built this place for a family, for children and grandchildren and Sunday dinners that went on for hours. Instead, he got 3 years of Nathan sitting alone at one end of the table eating meals he barely tasted. Nathan put coffee on the stove. His hands moved through the familiar motions while the women stood in a loose semicircle, not quite ready to sit, not quite ready to believe they were safe. "Names," Nathan said, pulling cups from the cabinet. "If you're staying, I should know who you are." The dark-haired woman stepped forward slightly, still positioning herself as the leader, the protector. "My name is Evelyn Wright. This is Riley Shaw, Beth Morgan, Julia Hayes, and Grace Abbott." Nathan poured coffee into 6 cups and set them on the table. Then he gestured for the women to sit. They did slowly, keeping their travel bags close, always ready to run. Nathan recognized that too. He had lived that way for 5 years after Anna and Claire died, never unpacking completely, never settling. Because if you never settled, you never had to admit that the place you were running from was inside your own head. He took the chair at the head of the table, the chair Jeremiah used to sit in. It felt wrong, too big, too full of expectations Nathan couldn't meet. "So," Nathan said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup, "tell me what you're running from." The 5 women exchanged looks again. Evelyn seemed to be waiting for permission. Finally, the older woman, Grace, nodded slightly. Evelyn took a breath. 2 years ago, my husband Michael was killed in a mining accident. That's what the official report said. Cave-in at Silver Creek Mine, faulty timber supports. 3 men dead, including the foreman, including my husband." She paused, her hands tightening around her coffee cup. "But it wasn't an accident. Michael was murdered. The supports were deliberately weakened. He died because he discovered something he wasn't supposed to know, something worth killing for." Nathan said nothing, just listened. He had learned in the war that sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was shut up and let them tell their story. "Michael found out the mine owner was poisoning the water supply," Evelyn continued, "deliberately contaminating the groundwater to drive down property values so he could buy the land cheap. Michael collected evidence, planned to report it to the territorial authorities. 3 days before he could file the report, the cave-in happened." "The mine owner," Nathan said. "Who?" "Theodore Garrison." The name meant nothing to Nathan, but the way Evelyn said it with controlled fury, barely masking fear, told him everything he needed to know. This Garrison was dangerous, and these 5 women had crossed him. Riley spoke next, her voice hard and sharp. "My husband Daniel owned a horse ranch in Wyoming, prime land near good water. Garrison wanted it. Daniel refused to sell. One night our barn caught fire. Daniel went in to save the horses. The barn collapsed on him. I dragged him out, but he was already gone. Fire marshal ruled it an accident. Lantern left burning, they said." "But Daniel never left lanterns burning," Grace added quietly. "His brother died in a house fire when they were children. Daniel was meticulous about fire safety, obsessive even." Beth the blonde spoke next. Her voice was softer, younger. "My husband Owen was a doctor. He treated some of Garrison's workers, men who had been injured in unsafe conditions. Owen started asking questions. Why so many accidents? Why Garrison's companies had 3 times the injury rate of comparable operations? He wrote letters to the Territorial Medical Board. A week later he was robbed and murdered on his way home from a house call. They never found who did it. Julia the brunette with calculating eyes was 4th. My husband Henry was a bank accountant. Garrison applied for a large loan for a new venture. Henry discovered the collateral Garrison was offering was fraudulent, properties that didn't exist, assets that had been sold twice. Henry refused to approve the loan. 2 days later the bank was robbed. Henry was shot trying to protect the vault. The robbers left behind more money than they took. It was a message, not a theft. Finally, Grace. My husband Robert was a blacksmith, good man, honest. He witnessed Garrison ordering the sabotage of a competitor's equipment. Robert agreed to testify in court. Before the trial date, he was arrested on false charges of theft. While in jail, he was poisoned. The authorities said he took his own life. But Robert was devoutly religious. He would never have committed suicide. Someone gave him something that stopped his heart and made it look natural. The kitchen fell silent. Nathan looked at the 5 women around his table. 5 dead husbands. 5 widows left with nothing but their grief and the knowledge that the man who destroyed their lives walked free. He felt something cold and familiar settle in his chest. The helplessness of watching someone you love die. The rage at a universe that allowed good people to suffer while evil men prospered. He had felt it 8 years ago, standing beside 2 graves, wondering why God had taken his family and left him behind. "You went to the law," Nathan said. It wasn't a question. "Marshal William Hayes," Evelyn replied. "He's the only federal lawman in Colorado who isn't in Garrison's pocket." Hayes believed us. But he said without concrete evidence there was nothing he could do. Garrison is too powerful, too connected. Hayes advised us to leave, to hide somewhere Garrison couldn't find us. "But you didn't just hide," Nathan said. "You fought back." Evelyn's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "We planned to. The 5 of us met regularly, gathered evidence, documented every suspicious death, every bribe, every threat. We thought if we could build a strong enough case, even Garrison's influence couldn't save him." "What happened?" Riley answered, her voice shaking with barely suppressed violence. "We found out Garrison was planning something new, not just killing competitors or silencing witnesses. He was bringing in young women from the East, promising them respectable work, then forcing them into situations they couldn't escape. Indentured servitude dressed up in legal contracts." "One night," Evelyn continued, "Garrison held a party at his mansion. We knew he kept documents in his study, evidence of his illegal activities. We planned to break in during the party, steal the documents, and disappear before anyone noticed." "But something went wrong," Nathan said. Evelyn's face went pale at the memory. "We got into the study, found the documents, but then we heard screaming from upstairs. We went to investigate and found Garrison in his bedroom with a girl. She couldn't have been more than 16. He was hurting her." Riley's voice cut in raw with rage. "I grabbed a wine bottle and hit him over the head. He went down. We thought we'd killed him. We took the girl and ran, got her to a church that helps women in trouble. Then we scattered." "But Garrison didn't die," Nathan said. "No. He woke up. And now he's hunting us." Nathan absorbed this. His mind worked through the implications, pulling on years of tactical training. "So you came here, to Jeremiah." Evelyn nodded. "Marshal Hayes knew your brother. Said Jeremiah was one of the few truly good men he'd ever met. That if anyone could help us disappear, it would be him. We arrived here 6 months ago. Jeremiah took us in, no questions asked. He let us stay in this house, helped us create new identities, taught us how to survive in the wilderness if we needed to run again." Nathan felt his throat tighten. That sounded like Jeremiah, always helping, always protecting, always standing between the innocent and the powerful. "And then?" Nathan asked, though he already suspected the answer. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. 3 months ago, Jeremiah went to Denver on business. When he came back, he seemed troubled. He told us he'd been followed, that someone had recognized him. 2 weeks later, he went out hunting and never came back. They found his body at the base of Red Ridge Cliff. The sheriff ruled it an accidental fall." "But it wasn't an accident," Nathan said. His voice came out flat. Cold. "No." Grace spoke this time, her maternal voice breaking. "I found boot prints at the top of the cliff, 2 sets. Someone was with him. Someone pushed him." Nathan stood abruptly, walked to the window. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering everything in white silence. His brother's land, his land now, land that had cost Jeremiah his life. He thought about the letter the lawyer had given him with the deed, the specific instructions Jeremiah had left. At the time, Nathan had thought it was meaningless sentiment. Now he understood. Jeremiah had known he might die. had known that Nathan, with his military background and his own losses, would be the right person to protect what Jeremiah could not. His brother had left him more than a house. He had left him a mission. Nathan turned back to the 5 women. "How long before Garrison finds you here?" Evelyn met his gaze steadily. "We don't know. We've been careful. But he has resources. Money, men, connections. It could be weeks. It could be tomorrow." "And when he comes?" Nathan asked, though he already knew the answer. Evelyn's voice hardened. "We won't go back. We'll die first." The words hung in the cold kitchen air. A promise and a threat. Nathan recognized the tone. He had used it himself once long ago when a Confederate officer had demanded his unit surrender. Some things were worth dying for. Some fights had to be fought regardless of the odds. He thought of Anna, of the way she had looked at him on their wedding day, the trust in her eyes, the absolute certainty that he would protect her and any children they might have. He had failed that trust, had been hunting elk in the mountains while plague swept through their town, killing his wife and daughter before he could get home to save them. For 8 years he had lived with that failure, had let it hollow him out until he was nothing but a shell going through the motions of existence. He had told himself he didn't deserve happiness, didn't deserve connection, didn't deserve to live when Anna and Claire were dead. But looking at these 5 women, at Evelyn with her fierce determination and hidden pain, he wondered if his brother had understood something Nathan did not. That redemption wasn't found in isolation, that the only way to honor the dead was to protect the living. "You'll stay," Nathan said. His voice came out stronger than he expected, more certain. "All of you, for as long as you need." Evelyn's shoulders dropped slightly, relief she couldn't quite hide. "Thank you. But Garrison will have to go through me first." Riley stepped forward. "Mr. Mercer, you don't understand what you're offering. Garrison has killed better men than you, richer men, more powerful men." Nathan met her fierce blue gaze without flinching. "I'm not rich or powerful, but I'm a man who has nothing left to lose, and that makes me more dangerous than Garrison can imagine." Beth spoke up, her voice trembling. "We can't ask you to risk your life for strangers." "You're not asking," Nathan said quietly. "I'm choosing, and you're not strangers. You're people who loved and lost just like me. You're people who refused to give up even when the world told you to accept injustice. That's not weakness. That's strength." Julia's calculating eyes studied him. "What do you want in return?" Nathan considered the question. What did he want? For 8 years he had wanted nothing, had felt nothing, had been a dead man walking through a living world. "I want to matter again," he said slowly. "I want my life to mean something beyond waking up and going to sleep. I want to protect people I couldn't protect before. And I want to make the man who killed my brother pay for what he's done." Evelyn stood, moving closer to Nathan. She was tall for a woman, her eyes nearly level with his. In those green depths he saw the reflection of his own pain, 2 wounded souls recognizing each other across a kitchen table. "We accept your offer," she said, "but there are things you need to know. Things about us, about what we've done. We're not innocent victims, Mr. Mercer. We have blood on our hands." Nathan thought of the war, of the men he had killed in service to a cause he hadn't fully believed in, thought of the faces that haunted his dreams, Confederate soldiers who were just boys really fighting for their homes, thought of the weight of those deaths, the way they accumulated like stones in his chest. "We all have blood on our hands," he said. "The question is whether we spilled it for the right reasons." Evelyn nodded slowly. Something like respect flickered in her eyes. "Then we have much to discuss. But first, if the offer still stands, we'd like to see where we'll be staying." Nathan led them upstairs. The second floor had 8 bedrooms arranged along a central hallway, 4 on each side. He had been sleeping in one of the smaller rooms downstairs, unable to bring himself to occupy the master bedroom Jeremiah had used. "You can choose whichever rooms you want," Nathan said. "They're all empty." The women moved through the hallway, opening doors, peering into spaces that had been closed for years. Nathan watched Evelyn pause at the doorway of the largest bedroom, the one at the end of the hall with windows facing east and south. Morning light would flood that space, making it seem almost warm despite the Colorado cold. "This was Jeremiah's room," Evelyn said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." She turned to Nathan. "You should take it." "No," Nathan said firmly. "I'll stay downstairs. These rooms are for you." Evelyn studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "As you wish." The women chose their rooms with quiet efficiency. Evelyn took the large bedroom at the end of the hall. Riley selected the room next to Evelyn's, positioning herself strategically to guard the approach to her friend's door. Beth chose a smaller room with a window overlooking the garden Jeremiah had planted, now overgrown and wild. Julia took the room nearest the stairs, the first line of defense if anyone came up from below. Grace claimed the room across from Evelyn's, a maternal instinct, placing her where she could watch over the others. When they had each deposited their meager belongings, they returned downstairs to find Nathan building up the fire in the main hearth. The house was cold, colder than it should be. He had let so many things slide in his grief. "We should discuss logistics," Julia said, her practical mind already working through problems. "Food supplies, security. If Garrison is truly hunting us, we need to prepare." Nathan straightened from the fireplace. "Agreed. The cellar is well stocked. Jeremiah was thorough about such things. There's enough food for 6 people to last through winter if we're careful. As for security—" He paused, remembering something. A conversation with Jeremiah years ago before Anna died, when Nathan had visited the ranch during its construction. His brother showing him features of the house with mysterious pride. Things Nathan hadn't understood then. "Follow me," Nathan said abruptly. He led them to the study, a room he had avoided for 3 years. The door stuck slightly as he pushed it open, swollen from disuse. Inside, everything was as Jeremiah had left it. Desk neat and organized. Books lined up on shelves. A large cabinet against one wall locked. Nathan searched through the desk drawers until he found a ring of keys. He selected one and opened the cabinet. Inside were documents, maps, and something unexpected. A leather-bound journal. He pulled out the journal, recognizing his brother's precise handwriting on the cover. "Nathan Cross. If you are reading this, I am gone. But my work is not finished. Please finish it for me." Evelyn moved closer, reading over his shoulder. He knew he might die. Nathan flipped open the journal, scanning the entries. They started 18 months ago, around the time the 5 women must have arrived. Jeremiah had documented everything. His suspicions about being followed, his concerns about Garrison, his plans to protect the women, and something else, something that made Nathan's blood run cold. "He knew about the tunnel," Nathan said, reading faster. "My God, he built a tunnel." Riley stepped forward. "What tunnel?" Nathan looked up from the journal, his mind racing. Jeremiah suspected that if Garrison found this place there would be violence, so he prepared an escape route. There's a tunnel running from the cellar to the forest half a mile away. He spent 2 years digging it, shoring it up, making it safe. "Show us," Evelyn said immediately. Nathan led them to the cellar, the journal in his hand. The space was large, lined with shelves of preserved food, barrels of flour, and salt crates of supplies. He moved to the far wall, running his hands along the stones. "It should be here somewhere," he muttered. "A hidden door." Grace knelt down, her fingers tracing the mortar lines. "Here, this section is newer. See how the mortar is slightly different in color." Together, Nathan and Grace found the release mechanism, a stone that pushed inward rather than sitting flush with the wall. When Nathan pressed it, they heard a click. A section of the wall, perhaps 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall, swung inward on well-oiled hinges. Beyond was darkness and the smell of earth. Nathan grabbed a lantern from the shelf, lit it, and held it into the opening. The light revealed a tunnel roughly 7 feet high and 5 feet wide, shored up with timber supports. The floor was packed earth, dry and solid. "My brother was a remarkable man," Nathan said quietly. "He saved our lives," Grace whispered. "Even after he died, he's still protecting us." They explored the tunnel's entrance but did not venture far. It would be there if they needed it. For now, knowing it existed was enough. Back in the main house, they gathered around the kitchen table again. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. For a moment, the house felt almost alive, almost like a home. "We need rules," Nathan said. "If we're going to survive this, we need to be clear about expectations and boundaries." Evelyn nodded. "Agreed. What do you propose?" "First, no one goes into town without at least one other person. Second, we establish a watch rotation, someone awake and alert at all times. Third, we create signals, ways to warn each other if there's danger." Julia pulled out a notebook and pencil from her bag, beginning to write. "What else?" "We train," Riley said. "If Garrison comes, we need to be ready to fight." Nathan looked at the redhead with new respect. "You know how to shoot." "My father taught me, but I'm out of practice." "Then we'll practice together, all of you. Rifles, pistols, anything we have. By the time Garrison finds us, if he finds us, you'll be ready." The conversation continued for hours, planning and preparing. They discussed fields of fire, defensible positions, supply rationing, emergency protocols. Nathan found himself falling into old patterns from his military days, thinking tactically, anticipating scenarios. But as the light faded and Grace stood to begin preparing an evening meal, Nathan realized something had shifted. For the first time in 3 years, he wasn't simply existing. He was living, planning for a future beyond the next day, protecting people who depended on him. It felt like purpose. It felt like redemption. That night, after a simple meal of salt pork and beans that Grace somehow made delicious, Nathan sat on the front porch. The stars were brilliant in the November sky, cold and distant. He heard the door open behind him and wasn't surprised when Evelyn stepped out, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the chill. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Nathan gestured to the chair beside him. Evelyn sat, and for a long moment they simply existed in companionable silence. Two people who understood that sometimes words were inadequate. Finally, Evelyn spoke. "Why are you really doing this, Nathan? And please don't tell me it's just about honoring your brother." Nathan considered the question, wanting to answer honestly. "Because I failed once. I wasn't there when my family needed me most. I was hunting in the mountains while plague killed my wife and daughter. For 8 years I've lived with that failure, with the knowledge that if I'd been home, maybe I could have saved them." "You couldn't have," Evelyn said gently. "Disease doesn't care about our will to protect." "Perhaps not, but I'll never know. And that not knowing has been eating me alive. So when you and the others appeared today, when I realized my brother died trying to protect you, it felt like a second chance. A chance to be the man I should have been 8 years ago." Evelyn turned to look at him, her face half in shadow. "And if we all die fighting Garrison, what then? Then at least I'll die for something that matters. That's more than I've had in a very long time." Evelyn reached out her hand, finding his on the arm of the chair. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. "Thank you for giving us hope. We've been running so long I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to stand and fight." Nathan looked down at their joined hands. The touch didn't feel like betrayal. Anna would have understood. Anna, who had always believed in helping people and standing against injustice, would have opened the door to these 5 women without hesitation. "What happens tomorrow?" Evelyn asked. "Tomorrow we start training. We prepare, and we wait." "Waiting is the hardest part." Nathan nodded. "I know." They sat together until the cold drove them inside. Nathan showed Evelyn how to bank the fire for the night, how to secure the doors and windows. Small domestic tasks that felt strange after so long alone. As Evelyn climbed the stairs to her room, she paused on the landing. "Nathan." "Yes." "I'm glad Jeremiah left this place to you. I think he knew exactly what he was doing." Nathan didn't respond, but he thought she was probably right. Jeremiah had always been the smarter brother, the one who understood people and their hidden depths. If his final act had been to bring Nathan and these 5 women together, then perhaps his death had not been meaningless. Perhaps none of this was meaningless. Nathan made his rounds, checking windows and doors, ensuring the house was secure. When he finally lay down in his small bedroom off the kitchen, he expected to lie awake as he usually did, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion pulled him under. But tonight, he fell asleep quickly, dreamlessly. And when he woke at dawn to the smell of coffee and frying bacon, to the sound of women's voices in his kitchen, he felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years. He felt needed. The morning routine established itself with surprising ease. Grace proved to be an excellent cook, transforming their basic supplies into filling meals. Riley took charge of the horses, her natural skill with animals evident in how she handled Nathan's aging mare and the horses the women had ridden in on. Beth organized the house, her gentle efficiency bringing order to spaces that had been neglected. Julia created an inventory system, tracking supplies and planning for future needs. Evelyn, meanwhile, seemed to be everywhere at once, coordinating efforts, making decisions, leading without seeming to lead. Nathan spent the morning gathering weapons. The house had more than he remembered. His brother had apparently been preparing for trouble. 3 rifles, 4 pistols, ammunition enough for a small war. He cleaned each weapon methodically, teaching the women as he worked. Riley proved to be as good as she claimed, her aim steady and her instincts sharp. Evelyn learned quickly, her hands sure on the rifle despite her lack of experience. Beth struggled with the recoil, but was determined to master it. Julia approached firearms with the same analytical precision she applied to everything else, studying angles and sight pictures. Grace, to everyone's surprise, turned out to be nearly as good as Riley, her hands steady despite their age. As Nathan watched them practice, he felt something like pride. These were not helpless victims. They were warriors being forged by necessity. On the 3rd day, Marshal William Hayes arrived. Nathan was in the barn when he heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. He stepped outside, hand instinctively moving to the pistol at his hip, and watched a lone rider emerge from the tree line. The man was in his mid-50s, weather-worn and lean, with iron-gray hair and sharp blue eyes. He wore a marshal's badge pinned to his coat. As he drew closer, Nathan saw Evelyn emerge from the house, her face tight with tension. The rider dismounted, his movements careful and non-threatening. "Marshal William Hayes," he said, addressing Nathan. "You must be Nathan Mercer." "I am. What brings a federal marshal to my property?" Hayes's eyes flicked to Evelyn, who had come to stand beside Nathan. "I'm looking for 5 women. I believe they may be here." Before Nathan could respond, Evelyn spoke. "We're here, Marshal. All of us." Hayes's shoulders sagged with visible relief. "Thank God. I've been searching for weeks." The radio in the kitchen crackled to life that evening. Static, then a woman's voice, uncertain, frightened. "This is Margaret Garrison. I need to speak with Evelyn Wright." The 5 women froze. Evelyn moved to the radio slowly, as if approaching a trap. "This is Evelyn. Who is this really?" "Theodore's wife. The one he told the world died 5 years ago. I'm alive, and I want to help you destroy him." Nathan appeared in the doorway, rifle ready, but the voice on the radio continued gaining strength. "I was locked in Riverside Sanatorium, drugged, kept compliant. Marshal Hayes found me 3 weeks ago. I escaped. I have evidence, testimony, everything you need to hang my husband." "Why should we trust you?" Riley asked, suspicious. "Because I've spent 5 years in hell because of him, because he killed good people to protect his secrets, and because I want to watch him lose everything the way he took everything from me." Over the next hour, Margaret told her story via radio. The asylum, the drugs, the 5 years of imprisonment while Garrison told the world she had died of consumption. Hayes had located her, helped her escape, hidden her while building the case. "I'll testify," Margaret said. "But I need him alive. I need him to stand trial and hear every crime listed. Death is too easy. I want him to face what he's done." Nathan looked at the 5 women around the radio, another victim of Garrison, another life destroyed, another reason to make sure the man faced justice, not just a bullet. "When this is over," Evelyn said into the radio, "you come here. You'll have a place with us." "Thank you." Margaret's voice broke. Thank you for giving me hope." They gathered in the house, the 5 women arrayed around Hayes like a defensive perimeter. The marshal accepted coffee from Grace but didn't drink it, too focused on delivering his message. "Garrison knows where you are," Hayes said without preamble. "Or rather, he knows you're somewhere in this region. He's hired men to search every ranch, every homestead, every isolated property within 100 miles of Denver." "How long do we have?" Julia asked, her voice calm despite the fear in her eyes. "Days. Maybe a week if we're lucky. I came as soon as I heard he was mobilizing his forces." "Forces," Riley repeated. "How many men?" Hayes's expression was grim. "At least 20. Professional gunmen. The kind who kill for money and don't ask questions." The room fell silent. 20 against 6. The mathematics were not favorable. "We have the tunnel," Beth said quietly. "We could leave now, disappear before they arrive." "And go where?" Evelyn asked. "We'd be right back where we started. Running. Hiding. Always looking over our shoulders." She turned to Hayes. "Can you stop him legally?" "I've been building a case for 2 years," Hayes said. "But Garrison is protected by people more powerful than a territorial marshal. I need more time, more evidence. Something so damning that even his friends can't shield him." Nathan had been listening quietly, his mind working through scenarios. Now he spoke. "What kind of evidence?" Hayes pulled a folder from his saddlebag. "This is what I have so far. Testimony from witnesses. Financial records showing bribes and kickbacks. Documentation of suspicious deaths. But it's all circumstantial. What I need is someone on the inside. Someone who can testify to Garrison's direct involvement in ordering these crimes." "His wife," Evelyn said suddenly. Hayes looked at her sharply. "You know about Margaret?" Evelyn nodded. "Jeremiah told us. He said Garrison claimed his wife died of consumption 5 years ago. But Jeremiah never believed it. He thought Garrison had her committed to an asylum to silence her." Hayes leaned forward. "What else did Jeremiah know?" Evelyn glanced at Nathan, who nodded for her to continue. "He said Margaret discovered evidence of her husband's crimes, that she was preparing to leave him, to take that evidence to the authorities. But before she could, Garrison had her declared insane and institutionalized. Jeremiah spent months trying to find which asylum, but he never succeeded." "I did," Hayes said quietly. 3 weeks ago, I located Margaret Garrison at Riverside Sanatorium outside Denver. She's alive, though Garrison has spent 5 years paying the administrators to keep her sedated and compliant." "Can you get her out?" Nathan asked. Hayes shook his head. "Not without legal authority, and getting that authority would tip off Garrison that we know about her. He'd move her, or worse, before we could act." "So we're back to waiting," Riley said bitterly. "No," Nathan said. "We prepare. We turn this ranch into a fortress, and when Garrison comes, we make sure he doesn't leave." Hayes studied Nathan with new interest. "You're proposing to fight." "I'm proposing to defend my property and the people under my protection. If Garrison wants them, he'll have to come through me." "Against 20 professional gunmen, Mr. Mercer, that's not defense. That's suicide." "Perhaps," Nathan said. "But it's better than running. These women have run far enough." Evelyn placed a hand on Nathan's arm. "We can't ask you to die for us." Nathan looked at her, seeing the strength and fear warring in her green eyes. "You're not asking. I'm choosing, just as Jeremiah chose." The room fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not the silence of despair, but the silence of people gathering their courage for what was to come. Hayes stood. "I should go. If Garrison's men are searching the area, they might see my horse. But I'll be back. And if you need help—" He left the sentence unfinished. They all knew that if it came to a fight, Hayes couldn't officially help without evidence of a crime. But the look in his eyes said he would come anyway, badge or no badge. After Hayes left, Nathan gathered the women in the study. He spread out a hand-drawn map of the property on Jeremiah's desk. The ranch sat in a naturally defensible position backed against a ridge of hills with open ground on 3 sides and forest on the 4th. If they come, this is how they'll approach, Nathan said, tracing the likely attack routes. They'll want to surround the house, cut off escape routes. Our advantage is that we know this ground and they don't. Riley leaned over the map. What about the tunnel? It's our last resort. If we have to evacuate, that's our route. But I'd prefer to make them pay for every inch they take. Over the next 3 days, they transformed the ranch. They reinforced the doors and windows with heavy shutters. They created firing positions with clear fields of view. They dug shallow trenches at key points obstacles that would slow attackers. They stockpiled water and ammunition in strategic locations. And they trained. Nathan drilled them relentlessly, teaching them not just to shoot, but to fight tactically. How to provide covering fire, how to fall back in good order, how to communicate under stress. Evelyn proved to be a natural leader, her commands calm and clear, even in simulated emergencies. Riley had the instincts of a warrior, aggressive and fearless. Beth overcame her fear through sheer determination, her shots becoming more accurate with each practice session. Julia approached combat like a chess match, always thinking 3 moves ahead. Grace provided steady support, her maternal presence keeping the others focused and calm. But it was the evenings that Nathan treasured most. After the hard work of preparation, they would gather around the fire and talk. Not about garrison, or violence, or fear, but about their lives, about who they had been before tragedy struck. Riley spoke of growing up on a ranch in Wyoming, of learning to ride before she could walk, of marrying Daniel Shaw, a man as steady as the mountains, and building a life together, breaking horses and raising cattle. Beth told them about her husband Owen, a doctor who had treated rich and poor alike, who had believed that healing was a calling, not a business. She spoke of the joy they had found in small things, in Sunday picnics and evening walks, in the simple comfort of being known and loved. Julia shared memories of Henry, her accountant husband who had seen numbers as poetry, who had shown her that precision and passion were not opposites. She spoke of their plans to open their own bank, one that would serve working people fairly. Grace remembered Robert, her blacksmith husband whose hands could shape iron but were gentle with children. She spoke of the life they had built together, simple and honest, full of hard work and deep contentment. And Evelyn talked about Michael, her miner husband, who had believed in justice even when it cost him everything. She spoke of his laugh, his stubbornness, his absolute certainty that good men had to stand against evil even if they stood alone. Nathan listened to these stories, hearing the love that persisted beyond death. And one night, prompted by Evelyn's gentle questioning, he spoke of Anna and Claire, of his wife's kindness and fierce protective love, of his daughter's laugh, her curiosity, her absolute trust that her father would always keep her safe. "I wasn't there," Nathan said, his voice rough with old pain. "I was hunting when the plague came. By the time I got home, they'd been dead for 2 days. The town healer told me Anna had called for me at the end, had asked where I was." Evelyn's hand found his in the firelight. "You couldn't have known. That's what makes it worse. If I'd known, I would have been there. I would have held her hand, told her I loved her, but I was stalking elk in the high country, completely unaware that my world was ending." Riley spoke up, surprising everyone. "My husband died saving horses, horses we could have replaced, but he couldn't be replaced. For months I hated him for choosing animals over me, over our future. Then I realized he didn't choose the horses. He chose to be the man he was, the man who couldn't walk away from suffering. That's who I loved, and I can't hate him for being exactly who he was." Nathan looked at Riley, seeing the wisdom in her fierce blue eyes. "Perhaps you're right. Perhaps I've been hating myself for being who I am, a hunter, a man who provided for his family by being away from them." "You were a good husband and father," Grace said quietly. "The fact that you grieve proves that. Bad men don't mourn." The conversation drifted to other topics, lighter memories, but Nathan felt something loosen in his chest, a knot of guilt he had carried for 8 years, if not released, at least acknowledged. These women understood loss in a way few others could. They didn't offer him easy absolution, but they offered him understanding, and that he realized was worth more than forgiveness. On the 6th day after Hayes's visit, everything changed. Nathan was checking the perimeter defenses when he heard hoofbeats. Fast, urgent. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound, heart pounding. But it wasn't Garrison's men. It was Marshal Hayes riding hard, his horse lathered with sweat. Hayes dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. "They're coming. Tomorrow at dawn. Garrison has assembled 20 men. I couldn't stop them legally, but I delayed them as long as I could." 20? Evelyn repeated, her face pale. "We can't fight 20 men." "You don't have to," Hayes said. "I brought help. 10 federal marshals are on their way. They should arrive by noon tomorrow, if you can hold until then." 12 hours, Nathan said. "We need to survive 12 hours. Hayes nodded. "I'll stay and fight with you. I'm done pretending the law can handle this quietly. Garrison is going down one way or another." Evelyn looked at Nathan. In her eyes he saw the question she didn't speak. Could they survive 12 hours against 20 professional killers? Nathan thought of Anna, of the promise he had made beside her grave, to protect what he could, to matter in ways that honored her memory. He thought of Jeremiah, who had given his life protecting these women. He thought of the 5 widows who had suffered enough, who deserved a chance at peace. "We'll hold," Nathan said. "We'll do whatever it takes, but we will hold." That night no one slept. They made final preparations, checked weapons, reviewed plans. Nathan positioned people at key defensive points. Riley and Evelyn would hold the upper floor with their rifles. Beth and Grace would provide support fire from the reinforced windows downstairs. Julia would manage ammunition and supplies moving between positions. Nathan and Hayes would be mobile, responding to wherever the attack was strongest. As the night deepened toward morning, Nathan found Evelyn standing at the upstairs window looking out at the dark landscape. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," Evelyn admitted, "but also ready. We've been victims long enough. Tomorrow we become something else." "What's that?" "Survivors, or ghosts who take Garrison with us. Either way, we won't go quietly." Nathan stood beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. "Evelyn, if tomorrow goes badly, there's something I need you to know." She turned to look at him, her face pale in the moonlight. "What?" "You remind me why life is worth living. For 8 years, I've been a ghost. You and the others, you brought me back. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for that." Evelyn's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. "Nathan, She didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, gentle, filled with all the things they hadn't said and might never have the chance to say. When she pulled back, Nathan saw tears on her cheeks. "Survive tomorrow," she whispered. "We have unfinished business." Nathan smiled, the first genuine smile he had managed in years. "Yes, ma'am. I intend to." They stood together at the window, watching the eastern sky slowly lighten from black to gray. Somewhere out there, 20 men were riding toward them intent on murder. But here, in this moment, Nathan felt something unexpected. He felt alive, fully, completely alive, ready to fight for something that mattered, ready to protect people he had come to care for, ready to be the man Anna would have been proud of. The sun rose, painting the hills in shades of gold and red. In the distance, Nathan saw movement. Riders, many riders. It was time. He squeezed Evelyn's hand once, then moved to his position. Around the house, 6 people prepared to fight for their lives. 6 against 20. Impossible odds by any measure. But Nathan had learned something in 8 years of loneliness. Sometimes the impossible was worth attempting. Sometimes the fight itself mattered more than the outcome. And sometimes when you had lost everything, you found that you had nothing left to fear. The riders drew closer, a dark line against the morning sky. Nathan checked his rifle one last time, took a deep breath, and waited for Garrison to make his move. The 20 riders stopped at the edge of rifle range, a dark line of men and horses silhouetted against the rising sun. Nathan watched them through the reinforced window of the fortified house, his rifle resting on the sill, his breathing steady despite the hammering of his heart. They were not rushing in. They were taking their time, studying the house, the terrain, looking for weaknesses. Professional soldiers would do the same. These were not angry townsmen or drunk cowboys. These were killers who understood their craft. In the center of the line sat a man on a white horse. Even at this distance, Nathan could see the expensive cut of his clothing, the deliberate calm of his posture. Theodore Garrison, the man who had murdered 5 husbands and ordered Jeremiah killed, the man who thought women were property to be owned and controlled. Marshal Hayes crouched beside Nathan, his own rifle trained on the riders. That's him, center, white horse. That's Garrison. And the others, mercenaries, ex-military. Some are wanted men hiding in plain sight. The one to Garrison's left, that's Cole Briggs, deputy from Denver. Smart, dangerous. He's the real threat. Nathan studied Briggs, a lean man with cold eyes and the bearing of someone who had killed before and would kill again without hesitation. Hayes was right. Men like Garrison gave orders. Men like Briggs made sure those orders were carried out. Evelyn appeared at Nathan's shoulder, her rifle in hand. Her face was pale but composed. "Are you afraid?" she asked quietly. Nathan considered the question honestly. Yes, but fear can sharpen the mind if you let it. Michael used to say something similar. He said fear was just your body preparing you to survive. The trick was not to let it control you. Your husband was a wise man. He was. Evelyn's grip tightened on her rifle. I wish he could see this, see us fighting back instead of running. He sees it, Nathan said. They all do, and they're proud. A voice called out from the riders, loud and cultured, carrying easily across the cold morning air. Evelyn Wright, Riley Shaw, Beth Morgan, Julia Hayes, Grace Abbott. I know you're in there. This has gone on long enough. Garrison's voice was calm, reasonable, the tone of a man discussing business rather than murder. Nathan felt Evelyn tense beside him. I'm offering you one chance to end this peacefully. Garrison continued. Come out now. Return to Denver with me. I promise no harm will come to you. We can settle this like civilized people. Evelyn moved to the window, her voice ringing out clear and strong. We're done being civilized with a man who has none. You killed our husbands. You killed Jeremiah Mercer. You've stolen, murdered, and corrupted everything you touched. There will be no peace between us. Garrison sighed, the sound carrying theatrical disappointment. How unfortunate. I had hoped you would see reason. Very well. Mr. Mercer, I presume you're in there as well. Nathan stepped into view at the window. I am. This is not your fight. These women have filled your head with lies about me. If you send them out, you have my word that you will be left unharmed. Your word means nothing, Nathan replied. You murdered my brother. That makes this very much my fight. Garrison's posture shifted slightly, the calm facade cracking just enough to show the anger beneath. Your brother was a fool who interfered in matters that didn't concern him. He paid the price for his meddling. The question is whether you're equally foolish. My brother was worth 10 of you, Nathan said, and when this is over, you'll answer for his death. Bold words from a dead man, Garrison said. You're outnumbered. You have no supplies, no reinforcements, no hope. Surrender now, and I'll make your death quick. Nathan raised his rifle sighting down the barrel at Garrison. The range was long but not impossible. His finger rested on the trigger. For a moment he considered taking the shot, ending Garrison here and now regardless of what happened after. But Evelyn's hand touched his arm. Not yet. Make him come to us. Nathan lowered the rifle slightly. She was right. They had the advantage of fortifications. Forcing Garrison to attack across open ground would cost him men and time they needed to survive until the federal marshals arrived. Garrison seemed to sense Nathan's decision. He turned his horse, calling out to his men, "Burn them out!" Nathan pulled back from the window as gunfire erupted. 20 rifles opened fire simultaneously. Bullets shattered glass and splintered wood. He dropped to the floor, pulling Evelyn down with him. Around the house he heard return fire from Riley, Beth, Grace, and Julia. Hayes was somewhere below his rifle, adding to the defensive barrage. The initial volley was withering, designed to keep the defenders pinned while Garrison's men advanced. Nathan crawled to a different window, risking a glance outside. Half of Garrison's force was dismounting, moving forward in a loose skirmish line. The other half remained mounted, circling the house, looking for weak points. Professional tactics, military precision. Nathan aimed carefully, leading his target, accounting for distance and wind. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against his shoulder. 100 yards away, one of Garrison's men stumbled and fell, clutching his leg. First blood to the defenders. Riley's rifle cracked from the next room. Another of Garrison's men went down, this one not moving. The redhead was as good as she claimed, her aim deadly even under stress. But Garrison's men were professionals. They didn't panic or retreat. They found cover behind rocks and trees, maintaining steady fire on the house while others continued to advance. Nathan saw one group moving toward the barn, trying to flank them. "Hayes!" he shouted. "Barn east side!" He heard the marshal's rifle answer from below, the distinctive boom of a heavy-caliber weapon. The men advancing on the barn scattered, seeking new cover. The fight settled into a pattern. Garrison's men would advance. The defenders would drive them back. And slowly, inexorably, the attackers would gain ground. Nathan counted ammunition in his head, calculating how long they could maintain this rate of fire. 6 hours, maybe 8, if they were careful. The marshals were supposed to arrive in 12. A crash from below made Nathan's heart stop. One of the shutters had been breached. He heard Hayes curse, then the roar of a shotgun. Screams followed, then silence. "Hayes!" Nathan called down. "Talk to me." "Still alive," Hayes's voice came back. "Took a graze to the shoulder. Hurts like hell, but I can still fight." Evelyn was already moving toward the stairs. "I'll help him." Nathan caught her arm. "No. If you leave your position, we lose coverage on the north approach." He looked at the ceiling, calculating. "Julia, you're closest to Hayes. Can you get to him?" "Already moving." Julia's voice came from somewhere nearby. Nathan heard her footsteps on the stairs, quick and light. He turned back to his window, scanning for targets. The sun was higher now, burning off the morning chill. Bodies lay scattered around the house. Nathan counted 5 down, maybe 6. Garrison still had overwhelming numbers. A new sound cut through the gunfire, the crackling of flames. Nathan's blood went cold. They had torched the barn. Thick black smoke rose into the clear morning sky. Even from the house, Nathan could feel the heat. The horses they had sheltered there had been led to safety in the pre-dawn darkness, hidden in a ravine a quarter-mile away. Still watching the structure burn felt like a defeat. Garrison's voice called out again, smug with satisfaction. "You see how easy it is to destroy what you love. Surrender now while you still have a house to surrender from." Nathan didn't bother responding. He was conserving ammunition, taking only shots he was confident would hit. Beside him, Evelyn did the same, her movements economical and precise. She had learned quickly, transforming from a woman who had never held a rifle to a competent fighter in less than a week. The morning wore on. The sun climbed higher, and the temperature inside the fortified house rose despite the November chill outside. Nathan's shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. His ears rang from his constant gunfire. Sweat stung his eyes, but they were holding. Julia appeared at the top of the stairs, her hands bloody. "Hayes is stable. The bullet went through clean, but he's lost blood. He needs rest." "Can he still shoot if he has to?" "Yes, but it would be better if he didn't have to." Nathan nodded. "Keep him in reserve. We may need him later." Below, something heavy slammed into the front door. Once, twice, 3 times. The reinforced timber held, but Nathan heard the wood beginning to splinter. Evelyn sighted down her rifle, aiming at the door. "When they break through, we make them pay for it." The door shuddered under repeated impacts. Nathan moved to a position where he could cover Evelyn, his rifle aimed at the doorway. In his peripheral vision, he saw Riley doing the same from the opposite window, creating a crossfire that would turn the entrance into a killing zone. The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters. 3 men rushed through, weapons raised. Evelyn fired. The first man's head snapped back and he crumpled. Riley fired. The second man spun sideways, his chest blooming red. Nathan fired. The third man managed 2 steps before Nathan's bullet took him in the throat. 3 more of Garrison's men dead. The odds were improving, but they were still outnumbered 2-1. "Retreat," Nathan ordered. "Upstairs, we can't hold the ground floor." They fell back in good order, exactly as they had practiced. Evelyn and Riley provided covering fire, while Nathan, Julia, Grace, and Beth withdrew up the stairs. Then Riley ran with Evelyn, firing to protect her. Finally, Evelyn herself sprinted for the stairs with Nathan and Riley, both shooting to keep Garrison's men pinned. The upper floor was more defensible. Narrower corridors, fewer entrances, better fields of fire. Nathan positioned his people at the windows and the top of the stairs, creating interlocking zones of control. Below, he heard Garrison's men moving through the house, cautious now, having learned the price of carelessness. They would be searching for the best way to assault the upper floor, looking for weaknesses in the defense. Evelyn crouched beside Nathan at the head of the stairs, reloading her rifle with practiced efficiency. "How many do you think are left?" Nathan did a quick mental calculation. "We've killed 9 for certain. That leaves 11. Still too many, but better odds than before." "The marshals will be here soon." Nathan glanced at the sun's position. It was nearly noon. The marshals should be arriving any time. But every minute felt like an hour, and he couldn't count on help that hadn't yet appeared. A sound from below made him tense. Footsteps, deliberate and unhurried. Then a voice, cultured and calm despite the violence. "Impressive, Mr. Mercer. You and your companions have fought well. You've cost me 9 men, 9 expensive men who will need to be replaced. But you must know this cannot continue." Garrison had entered the house. Nathan felt a cold rage settle in his chest. The man responsible for so much death and suffering was standing below him, close enough to kill. "You're right," Nathan called back. "It cannot continue. When the federal marshals arrive, you'll be arrested for murder. Multiple murders." Garrison laughed, the sound genuinely amused. "Federal marshals, ah yes. William Hayes mentioned something about reinforcements. That's why I made certain to cut the telegraph lines and post men on every road into this valley. Your marshals are not coming, Mr. Mercer. Or rather, they're coming, but they'll arrive far too late to help you." Nathan felt the words like a physical blow. If Garrison had blocked the roads, the marshals might be delayed by hours. By then the house would be overrun. Evelyn must have seen something in his face. She gripped his arm, her voice fierce and low. "We don't need them. We've held this long. We can hold longer." Nathan wished he could believe her, but the mathematics were brutal. They were running low on ammunition. Hayes was wounded. Grace, though competent with a rifle, was tiring. They couldn't sustain this fight indefinitely. A new voice called from below, and Nathan's heart nearly stopped. It was Beth, her voice high with terror. "Please don't hurt me. I'll tell you anything." Evelyn's face went white. Beth. They had Beth. Somehow in the chaos of the retreat, Garrison's men had captured her. Nathan cursed himself for a fool. In the rush to get everyone upstairs, he had lost track of the youngest member of their group. "Bring her up," Garrison said calmly. "Let them see what cooperation looks like." Beth appeared at the base of the stairs, held by a man nearly twice her size. Her face was bruised, her dress torn, but her eyes, when they met Nathan's, were not afraid. They were apologetic. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have stayed with Grace." The man holding her put a gun to her head. Garrison stepped into view beside them, his expensive suit somehow still immaculate despite the battle. "Now then," Garrison said, "let us discuss terms. You surrender, and I let this young woman live. You continue fighting, and I kill her right now. Your choice." Nathan's mind raced. If they surrendered, Garrison would kill them all anyway. But if they refused, Beth would die. There was no good option, only terrible choices. Evelyn stood, her rifle aimed not at the man holding Beth, but at Garrison himself. "You want terms. Here are mine. Let Beth go, and we won't kill you where you stand." Garrison smiled. "You're hardly in a position to make threats, Miss Wright. I have a gun to your friend's head. You have nothing." "We have this," Evelyn said, and pulled a folded paper from her pocket. Nathan recognized it. one of the documents from Hayes's case file. Evidence of Garrison's crimes. "We have copies of every murder you ordered," Evelyn continued. "Every bribe you paid, every life you destroyed. William Hayes has the originals. Even if you kill us, the evidence will find its way to the territorial governor. You will hang for what you've done." Garrison's smile faded. "You're bluffing. Try me. Kill Beth, and I burn these documents along with your last chance to negotiate. Let her go, and perhaps we can discuss your surrender." The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Nathan kept his rifle trained on Garrison, his finger on the trigger. If the man made one wrong move, Nathan would end him. Beth's life be damned. Then a new sound cut through the tension. Hoofbeats. Many hoofbeats coming fast. Garrison's head turned toward the sound, his expression uncertain for the first time. Nathan moved to the window, risking a glance outside. What he saw made his heart soar. Riders. At least 20 of them wearing the distinctive badges of federal marshals. They had made it through Garrison's blockade. At the head of the column rode Marshal Hayes, somehow back in the saddle despite his wound, and beside him a woman Nathan had never seen before. Middle-aged blonde hair streaked with gray, her face set with grim determination. The cavalry had arrived, and they had brought Garrison's worst nightmare. The marshals surrounded the house in a loose perimeter, rifles raised but not yet firing. Hayes dismounted carefully, favoring his wounded shoulder. The woman beside him remained mounted, her gaze fixed on the house with an intensity that suggested personal stakes. "Theodore Garrison," Hayes called out, his voice carrying the weight of federal authority. "You are surrounded. Order your men to stand down and surrender yourself for arrest." Garrison's face had gone pale. He stepped toward the door, still holding the gun on Beth, using her as a shield. "On what charges?" "Murder," Hayes replied. "Bribery, corruption, kidnapping. And thanks to the woman beside me, I now have an eyewitness to one of your most heinous crimes." The blonde woman urged her horse forward. When she spoke, her voice was cold as mountain ice. "Hello, Theodore. Did you miss me?" Garrison's gun hand trembled. "Margaret, that's impossible. You're dead." "Clearly not," Margaret Garrison replied. "Though you certainly tried your best. 5 years in that asylum, drugged and helpless, while you told the world I'd died of consumption. But I'm very much alive, Theodore, and I'm going to watch you hang for what you did to me and to all these other people." Nathan watched Garrison's face cycle through emotions: shock, fear, rage, calculation. The man was trapped, his careful plans unraveling. But trapped men were dangerous men. Garrison pressed the gun harder against Beth's head. "If I'm going to hang anyway, then I have nothing to lose." He raised his voice, addressing the marshals. "Order your men back, or I kill this woman." Hayes didn't move. "You kill her and my men kill you. Is one more murder worth dying for?" Garrison's laugh was brittle, edged with madness. "1 more? 100 more? What does it matter? I'm already damned. At least I can take some of you with me." Nathan saw it in Garrison's eyes. The decision to go down fighting, to inflict as much damage as possible in his final moments. The man was going to kill Beth regardless of what happened next. Evelyn saw it too. Her rifle swung toward Garrison, but she didn't have a clear shot. The man holding Beth was in the way, and any missed bullet could kill the woman they were trying to save. Time seemed to slow. Nathan's training from the war came flooding back. The calculations a soldier made in the instant before violence: distance, angle, wind, probability of success, acceptable losses. Beth met his eyes across the space between them. In her gaze he saw acceptance. She knew she was going to die, and she was making peace with it. No, Nathan thought. Not today. Not while I still draw breath. He shifted his aim from Garrison to the man holding Beth. A harder shot. The target partially obscured. But Nathan had been a sharpshooter in the war, had made impossible shots under worse conditions. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. The bullet crossed the distance in a fraction of a second, entering the man's skull just above his right eye. He was dead before he began to fall. Beth dropped as the corpse released her, covering her head with her hands. Garrison spun toward Nathan, raising his gun. But before he could fire, a shot rang out from outside. Garrison jerked sideways, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. Margaret Garrison stepped through the doorway, smoke rising from the rifle in her hands. Her face was pale but determined. "No more," Margaret said, her voice shaking. "You will not kill anyone else, Theodore." Evelyn fired, striking Garrison's shoulder. Riley fired, hitting his leg. 3 bullets had found their mark. Garrison staggered backward, blood spreading across his expensive suit. His gun fell from nerveless fingers. He looked down at himself with an expression of profound surprise, as if he could not quite believe his mortality. Then his legs buckled, and he collapsed, gasping like a landed fish. The remaining gunmen, seeing their employer down and federal marshals surrounding them, threw down their weapons. The fight was over. Nathan lowered his rifle, his hands shaking with adrenaline. Around him the house settled into an eerie quiet after hours of constant gunfire. Smoke hung in the air, acrid and thick. Evelyn ran down the stairs to Beth, pulling the younger woman into her arms. Beth was crying. Great racking sobs of relief and terror finally released. Nathan followed more slowly, his rifle still ready in case any of Garrison's men proved foolish. But they were beaten, hands raised, waiting for the marshals to take them into custody. Hayes entered the house, his face gray with pain but his eyes sharp. Nathan noted fresh blood on the marshal's shoulder. The ride must have reopened his wound. "You should be resting," Nathan said. "I'll rest when this is done," Hayes replied. He looked down at Garrison, who was still breathing through barely. "Get a doctor. I want him alive to stand trial." One of the marshals ran to comply. Nathan knelt beside Garrison, checking the wounds. Serious, but probably not fatal if treated quickly. The man would live to face justice. Garrison's eyes focused on Nathan with effort. "You think you've won?" His voice was a wet whisper, blood bubbling at his lips. "I have friends, powerful friends. They'll make this disappear." "Your friends are already running," Margaret Garrison said, entering the house and staring down at her husband with contempt. "When I told the territorial governor about the asylum, about everything you did, he started investigating. Your judges, your sheriffs, your politicians, they're all turning on you, trying to save themselves. You're finished, Theodore." Garrison coughed, blood staining his lips, but his eyes remained open, conscious, alive. The doctor arrived and began working to stabilize him. The wounds were serious but survivable. Garrison would live to stand trial. A doctor would arrive soon. Until then, Garrison could suffer. The 5 women gathered in what remained of the living room, supporting each other, checking for wounds. They were battered, exhausted, smoke-stained and bloodied. But they were alive, all of them. Nathan felt Evelyn's hand slip into his. Her fingers were cold, trembling with reaction now that the danger had passed. He squeezed gently, letting her know without words that he understood, that she had been magnificent, that she had saved them all. Marshal Hayes organized his men, securing prisoners, collecting weapons, beginning the documentation that would be required for trial. He paused beside Nathan, his expression grateful. "Thank you," he said simply, "for keeping them alive, for standing when you could have run." "They're worth standing for," Nathan replied. Hayes glanced at Evelyn, something knowing in his tired eyes. "Yes, I believe they are." The next hours passed in a blur of activity. The doctor worked quickly, stopping the bleeding. "He'll live," the doctor announced. "The bullets missed vital organs. He'll recover enough to stand trial." The federal marshals took statements, gathered evidence, processed prisoners. Margaret Garrison sat with the 5 widows, sharing her own story of survival and escape, creating bonds of shared trauma and triumph. As the sun began to set, painting the smoke-stained sky in shades of orange and purple, Nathan stood on what remained of his front porch and surveyed the damage. Bullet holes pocked every wall. Windows were shattered. The front door hung from broken hinges. The barn was a pile of smoking ash, but the house still stood, and the people inside it still breathed. Evelyn joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She offered one to Nathan, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the marshals prepare to transport Garrison and his men back to Denver for trial. Your brother would be proud, Evelyn said quietly. Nathan thought of Jeremiah, of the last letter he had written asking Nathan to protect what he could not. I think he would be. I think he knew. I think that's why he left me this place. To turn you into a target. To give me a reason to live. Nathan sipped the coffee, grateful for its warmth. For 8 years I've been going through the motions. Eating, sleeping, working. But not really living. Today, fighting to protect you and the others, I felt alive again. Fully alive. And I have Jeremiah to thank for that. And us, Evelyn said. What about us? Nathan turned to look at her, seeing the vulnerability beneath her strength. What do you want there to be? Evelyn set down her coffee and faced him directly. I want to stop running. I want to build something real. I want to wake up in a place that feels like home with people who feel like family. And I want you to be part of that. Even though I failed my first family. You didn't fail them, Nathan. Disease failed them. Fate failed them. You were just a man doing his best to provide. Evelyn's hand found his cheek, gentle despite the calluses from rifle work. And now you're a man who has saved 5 women from a monster, who has given us back our lives. Don't tell me you're not worthy of happiness when you've created it for others. Nathan leaned into her touch, feeling something inside him crack and give way. A wall he had built around his heart, brick by painful brick, over 8 years of self-imposed isolation. Evelyn's words, her presence, her impossible strength. All of it worked together to bring that wall tumbling down. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to love again. How to risk caring when caring has hurt so much. None of us do, Evelyn said. We're all wounded, all scarred. But maybe that's the point. Maybe people who have survived the worst can appreciate the best in ways others cannot. She kissed him. Then there, on the ruined porch, with the smell of smoke and blood still heavy in the air, it was not a kiss of passion or desperate need. It was a kiss of promise, of 2 people choosing to hope despite every reason not to. When they separated, Nathan saw tears on Evelyn's face, but she was smiling. So what happens now? She asked. Now, Nathan said, looking at the damaged house, we rebuild. The structure is sound. The foundation is solid. We can repair the rest. I wasn't asking about the house. Nathan smiled, understanding. Neither was I. That night they gathered around the kitchen table one last time before the marshals departed with their prisoners. Hayes accepted Grace's offer of hot food, his wounded shoulder properly bandaged now by the doctor. Margaret Garrison sat with them, finally free after 5 years of captivity, though the haunted look in her eyes suggested freedom would take time to feel real. What will you do now? Nathan asked her. Margaret considered the question, her fingers wrapped around a cup of tea. Testify against Theodore. Make sure he pays for what he did to me and to everyone else. After that, she shrugged, I have money, property that was mine before we married. Perhaps I'll use it to help other women escape bad situations. God knows there are enough of them. That's good work, Grace said quietly. Important work. What about you 5? Margaret asked. Will you stay here? The women looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Evelyn spoke. If Nathan will have us, yes. We'd like to stay. This place has become home in a way Denver never was. Here we're not victims or widows or women who need protecting. We're just ourselves. Nathan felt warmth spread through his chest. You're welcome to stay as long as you wish. All of you. This house is too big for one man anyway. Riley grinned, her fierce expression softening. Good. Because someone needs to teach you how to properly care for horses. Your mare was practically feral when we arrived. And the garden is a disaster, Beth added. Come spring, we'll need to completely replant. The accounts are a mess too, Julia said. No organization at all. It will take months to straighten out. And your cooking, Grace said with gentle diplomacy, could use some improvement. Nathan laughed, the sound feeling strange and wonderful after years of grim silence. So I'm being tolerated for my property and my poor housekeeping skills. And your shooting? Evelyn added, her eyes warm. That was rather impressive today. High praise, Nathan said dryly. Hayes stood wincing slightly as the movement pulled his wounded shoulder. I should get these prisoners back to Denver before they recover enough courage to cause trouble. He looked at Nathan, extending his hand. Thank you again for everything. Nathan shook the offered hand. Will Garrison face justice, real justice? With Margaret's testimony and all the evidence we've gathered. Hayes nodded grimly. He'll hang, and his network of corruption will hang with him. This is the beginning of real change in the territory. After the marshals left, taking Garrison and his surviving men with them, the house felt almost too quiet. The women drifted to their rooms, exhausted by the day's violence and emotion. Nathan walked through the damaged house, cataloging what needed repair. The work would be extensive. Windows replaced, walls patched, doors rehung. The barn would need to be completely rebuilt. But it was possible. All of it was possible. Evelyn found him in the study examining a bullet hole in Jeremiah's desk. You should sleep, she said. So should you. I can't. Every time I close my eyes I see it all again. The shooting, the blood, Beth with that gun to her head. Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself. I keep thinking how close we came to losing everything. But we didn't, Nathan said. We held. We survived. That's what matters. Is it? Evelyn looked at him, her eyes troubled. 9 men died today, Nathan. 9. Yes, they were trying to kill us, but they're still dead. Does that not bother you? Nathan moved closer, taking her gently by the shoulders. It bothers me that it had to happen at all. But I will not apologize for protecting you and the others. Those men made their choice when they took Garrison's money. We made ours when we decided to stand and fight. I'm at peace with that choice. I wish I could be. Give it time. Nathan pulled her into an embrace, feeling her gradually relax against him. The war taught me that survival sometimes requires terrible choices. The key is not to let those choices define you. You are not a killer, Evelyn. You are a woman who refused to be a victim. Never forget the difference. They stood together in the quiet study, finding comfort in shared presence. Outside, night had fully fallen, stars brilliant in the clear November sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, repairs to make, wounds to heal, futures to plan. But tonight they were alive. They had won. And that was enough. Over the following days, a rhythm established itself. Nathan and Riley worked on temporary repairs to make the house weatherproof before winter truly set in. Evelyn and Julia traveled to town for supplies, their names now known as the women who had helped bring down Theodore Garrison. Beth and Grace organized the house, creating order from chaos. The story spread quickly through the territory. The 5 widows who had fought a small war against corruption and won. Journalists came wanting interviews. Evelyn politely but firmly sent them away. They had lived through enough. They didn't need to relive it for public entertainment. A week after the battle, Marshal Hayes returned with news. Garrison had been formally charged with 17 counts of murder, along with numerous other crimes. His trial was set for January, and Hayes was confident of conviction. More importantly, Hayes brought documents. Legal papers declaring the 5 women fully cleared of any wrongdoing related to their attack on Garrison. They were free, not just in practice, but in law. That night they celebrated with a dinner that Grace declared the finest she had ever prepared. It was probably an exaggeration, but the joy in her eyes made it true enough. They ate and talked and laughed, the sound filling the house with life it had not known in years. After dinner, as the others cleaned up, Nathan and Evelyn walked outside. The night was cold but clear, the stars overhead like scattered diamonds. Nathan had been thinking about this moment for days, gathering courage for a question that terrified him more than Garrison's 20 gunmen had. Evelyn, there's something I need to ask you. She turned to face him, her expression curious. What is it? I know this is soon. I know we've both lost people we loved, and those losses don't just disappear. But I also know that I've spent 8 years being alone, and I don't want to be alone anymore. Nathan took a breath, his heart hammering. So I'm asking, hoping really, that you might consider, will you marry me? Not right away. We can wait as long as you need. But someday when you're ready, will you consider becoming my wife?" Evelyn's eyes widened. For a moment she simply stared at him, and Nathan feared he had miscalculated badly, had pushed too hard too fast. Then she smiled, and it was like sunrise. "Yes," she said simply. "When I'm ready, yes, I will marry you." Relief and joy flooded through Nathan in equal measure. He pulled her close, kissing her with all the emotion he could not find words for. Evelyn kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, holding him as if she would never let go. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Evelyn laughed. The sound was pure and bright, free of the shadows that usually haunted her. "Michael would have liked you," she said. "He always said I needed someone stubborn enough to match me." "Anna would have liked you too," Nathan replied. "She never had patience for weak women. She would have admired your strength." "They're probably watching us right now," Evelyn mused. "Probably arguing about whether we're moving too fast or too slow." "Definitely arguing," Nathan agreed. "But I think they would be happy for us. I think they would want us to live." "I think so too." They stood together under the stars. Two wounded people choosing hope over despair. Life over mere existence. Behind them, the damaged house stood as testament to survival. Ahead of them, uncertain but full of possibility, lay a future they would build together. Inside, the other women were singing. An old hymn, the melody rising into the night. Riley's strong alto, Beth's sweet soprano, Julia's steady mezzo, Grace's warm contralto, voices blending and harmonizing, creating something beautiful from individual threads of sound. Evelyn took Nathan's hand. "Come on, let's join them." They went inside into the warmth and light and laughter. The house that had been so empty now overflowed with life. 6 people who had every reason to give up had instead chosen to endure, and in that choosing they had created something more valuable than mere survival. They had created family, not born of blood but forged in fire, not perfect but real. Nathan looked around at the 5 women who had changed his life so completely. At Evelyn, his promised future. At Riley, fierce and loyal. At Beth, gentle and determined. At Julia, calculating and wise. At Grace, maternal and strong. His family, chosen and cherished. Jeremiah had known. Somehow his brother had known that this was what Nathan needed. Not solitude or penance, but connection. Not isolation, but purpose. Not death in life, but life in all its messy, beautiful, painful glory. "Thank you," Nathan thought, sending the words out to wherever his brother might be. "Thank you for understanding me better than I understood myself." That night Nathan slept deeply and dreamlessly for the first time in 8 years. And when he woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, to the sound of women's voices and morning bird song, he felt something he had thought lost forever. He felt at peace. The days turned to weeks. Winter settled over the ranch in earnest, bringing snow and cold winds that howled through the mountains. But inside the house warmth prevailed. They worked together, ate together, lived together in a harmony that surprised them all. Grace's cooking became the stuff of legend, drawing neighbors from miles away who had heard the story and wanted to meet the women who had stood against Theodore Garrison. Riley's way with horses led to plans for a breeding program come spring. Beth's medical knowledge, learned from her doctor husband, made her the unofficial healer for the surrounding area. Julia's financial acumen transformed the ranch's accounts into profitable ventures. Evelyn proved to have unexpected talents for organization, turning the household into a model of efficiency. And Nathan, who had thought himself used up and purposeless, found new meaning in teaching, protecting, and building. Margaret Garrison stayed with them for a week after the battle, finding solace in the company of women who understood her pain. She had been imprisoned for 5 years in Riverside Sanatorium, drugged into compliance, while her husband told the world she had died of consumption. The scars on her wrists told the story of leather restraints. The haunted look in her eyes spoke of worse things she would not name, but she was not broken, not anymore. "You should be proud," Margaret told them one evening as they sat around the fire. "You brought down a monster that terrorized this territory for a decade. You gave voice to victims who had been silenced. You changed things." "We just wanted justice for our husbands," Evelyn said quietly. "And you got it." Margaret smiled, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "Now you get to have the rest of your lives. Don't waste them on anger or regret. Build something good. That's the best revenge against people like Theodore." The advice was sound. They took it to heart. In late November, word came that Garrison's trial date had been set for January. Marshal Hayes would need all 5 women to testify along with Margaret. The prosecution was building an ironclad case: 17 counts of murder, conspiracy, bribery, kidnapping, attempted murder. The territorial governor himself had taken an interest. Garrison's network of corrupt officials was being systematically dismantled. Judges removed from office, sheriffs arrested, politicians fleeing before they could be charged. Theodore Garrison had built an empire on fear and money. Both were worthless now. Nathan stood on the rebuilt porch one December morning watching the sun rise over snow-covered mountains. Behind him he heard the house come alive with morning sounds. Grace in the kitchen, Riley calling to the horses, Beth humming as she organized her medical supplies. 3 months ago he had been alone, convinced his life was over. Now he was surrounded by people who had become family, who depended on him, who trusted him with their safety and their futures. Evelyn emerged from the house, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She had taken to this morning ritual, joining Nathan for the quiet minutes before the day's work began. She wore one of his old flannel shirts over her dress sleeves rolled up. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing the strong lines of her face. She was beautiful, Nathan thought, not in the way Anna had been beautiful, soft and gentle. Evelyn's beauty was harder, forged in fire, the kind that came from surviving things that should have killed you and choosing to keep living anyway. "You're thinking too loud again," Evelyn said, handing him a cup. "I can hear it from inside." Nathan accepted the coffee, his cold fingers grateful for the warmth. "Just counting my blessings, making sure they're real." "They're real." Evelyn leaned against the railing beside him. "So is the work waiting for us. Riley wants to start breaking the new horses today. Julia needs your signature on supply orders. Grace is planning something elaborate for Christmas dinner and will need someone to hunt fresh meat. And you. What do you need?" Evelyn turned to look at him, her green eyes warm in the morning light. "Just this. A few minutes of peace before the chaos begins." Nathan set down his coffee and pulled her close. She came willingly, fitting against him as if they had been doing this for years instead of weeks. He breathed in the scent of her hair, lavender and wood smoke, familiar now and beloved. "I need to tell you something," Evelyn said quietly. "Something I've been keeping to myself." Nathan felt a flutter of concern. "What is it?" "I'm afraid." The words came out in a rush, as if she had been holding them back for too long. "Not of Garrison anymore. He's locked up awaiting trial, but afraid of this, of us, of letting myself hope again." Nathan pulled back enough to see her face. "Why?" "Because I loved Michael so much, and losing him nearly destroyed me. If I let myself love you the same way and something happens—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Nathan understood. He had lived with the same fear for 8 years, the terror of caring about something enough that losing it would kill you. "I can't promise nothing will happen," Nathan said. "I can't promise I won't get sick or injured or that some accident won't take me. Life doesn't work that way." "I know. But I can promise that every day I have, I'll spend trying to be worthy of you, of the chance you're giving me. And if something does happen, at least we'll have had this. These moments. This life we're building together." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "When did you get so wise?" "When I married a woman smarter than me." "We're not married yet." "Details," Nathan said and kissed her. They were interrupted by the sound of hoofbeats. Both of them tensed old reflexes from the war dying hard. But it was only a messenger from town, a young man on a tired horse carrying a telegram. Nathan took the message, tipped the messenger, and watched him ride away before opening the envelope. He read the contents twice, his expression darkening. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "It's from Hayes." Nathan handed her the telegram. "Garrison escaped. 3 days ago, the night before his execution. Evelyn read the message, her face going pale. How? Inside job. Deputy Cole Briggs broke him out, killed 4 guards doing it. By the time anyone discovered what happened, they had a 12-hour lead. Where is he now? Nathan looked at the mountains in the distance. Hayes doesn't know. Could be halfway to California by now. Or... He left the sentence unfinished, but they both knew what he was thinking. Or Garrison was coming here, to finish what he started. Nathan gathered the others in the kitchen. He read Hayes's telegram aloud, watching their faces react to the news. Riley's jaw clenched with rage. Beth's hands started shaking. Julia immediately began calculating escape routes. Grace closed her eyes in prayer. Evelyn stood beside Nathan, her hand finding his. United front. Partners facing the storm together. How long before he gets here? Riley asked. Her voice was flat, cold, the voice of someone preparing for war. If he's coming directly, he could arrive as soon as tomorrow, Nathan said. If he's gathering more men first, we might have a few days. We can't fight them again, Beth said quietly. We barely survived last time, and that was with surprise on our side. If Garrison knows what to expect, then we make sure he doesn't get what he expects, Nathan interrupted. We have advantages now. We know he's coming. We've had 3 months to prepare better defenses, and we're not the same people we were in November. He was right about that. The women who had fought so desperately to survive the first siege were harder now, more skilled, more dangerous. Riley had become an expert markswoman. Evelyn's tactical thinking rivaled Nathan's own. Even gentle Beth could hit a target at 200 yards without flinching. But Garrison was also different, no longer constrained by any pretense of civilization or law, a man with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. We need to prepare, Nathan said. Hayes is bringing reinforcements, but they're at least 6 hours away. We're on our own until then. Julia pulled out her notebook, already making lists. Security protocols, ammunition check, food supplies, escape routes. The tunnel, Grace said. We still have the tunnel if we need it. The tunnel is Plan B, Nathan said firmly. Plan A is making sure Garrison doesn't get close enough to force us to use it. They spent the day in focused preparation, checking weapons, reinforcing positions, going through drills they had practiced dozens of times, every movement economical, every action purposeful. As the sun began to set, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of orange and red, they gathered for dinner. Grace had made a simple meal, but no one had much appetite. They ate because they needed strength, not because they wanted food. After dinner, Nathan called Evelyn to the study. He closed the door behind them, ensuring privacy. There's something I need you to have, he said, pulling a small box from his desk drawer. Inside was a ring, simple gold band with a small diamond. It had been his mother's. Nathan, I can't. If tomorrow goes badly, Nathan said, cutting her off. If something happens to me, I want you to have this, not as a widow's token, but as proof that I meant what I said, that I wanted a future with you. Evelyn took the box with trembling hands. Don't talk like that. Don't talk like you're already dead. I'm not planning to die. But soldiers learn to prepare for possibilities. Nathan took her hands in his. I need you to promise me something. Anything. If things go wrong tomorrow, if we have to use the tunnel, you run and you don't look back. You take the others and you disappear. You live, Evelyn. No matter what happens to me, you live. No. The word came out fierce. Absolute. I'm not leaving you behind. We all get out or none of us do. Evelyn. No, she said again. I spent 2 years running after Michael died. I'm done running. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. Nathan looked at this woman who had become the center of his world in such a short time. This fierce, stubborn, beautiful survivor who refused to break no matter how hard life tried. Together, he agreed finally. But you wear the ring, please. Evelyn slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. She looked at it for a long moment, then at Nathan. Make me a promise, she said. What? Marry me. If we survive tomorrow, marry me the next day. No more waiting, no more fear, Just us, choosing to live. Nathan pulled her close, kissing her with all the desperation and hope and fear churning in his chest. "Yes," he whispered against her lips. "Yes." They stood together in the quiet study, holding each other as darkness fell outside, knowing that tomorrow might bring death. But tonight they had this moment, this promise, and sometimes that was enough. The night passed slowly. No one slept. They kept watch in shifts, but even those who were supposed to be resting lay awake in their beds, listening for sounds of approaching riders. Nathan sat on the porch with his rifle, scanning the darkness. The moon was nearly full, casting blue-white light across the snow, beautiful and cold and indifferent. He thought about Anna, about Claire, about the 8 years he had spent wishing he was dead. And he thought about how strange life was, how you could be convinced you had nothing left to live for, and then suddenly find yourself with everything to lose. Footsteps behind him. Riley emerged from the house, her own rifle in hand. "Can't sleep?" Nathan asked. "Didn't try." Riley sat down beside him, her eyes scanning the tree line. "I keep thinking about Daniel, about the night he died." Nathan said nothing, just listened. Riley so rarely talked about her past. "He didn't have to go into that barn," Riley continued. "The horses weren't worth dying for, but he couldn't help himself. He saw something suffering, and he had to try to save it. That's who he was." "You think that's foolish?" "I think it's beautiful and stupid in equal measure." Riley's voice caught. "I loved him for it, and I hate him for it, and I miss him so much it feels like something's eating me from the inside." "I know that feeling," Nathan said quietly. "You and Evelyn," Riley said. "You're going to be okay. Whatever happens tomorrow." "How do you know?" "Because you've both already survived the worst. You've been dead and come back to life. Nothing Garrison does can kill you again." "Not really." Nathan considered that. Perhaps Riley was right. Perhaps the worst thing that could happen to a person was learning to live after losing everything. And once you learned that lesson, death held less power over you. "What will you do?" Nathan asked. "After tomorrow, after it's truly over?" Riley was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'll rebuild the ranch. Daniel's ranch, our ranch. I think I'll breed horses like we planned. And I think every time a foal is born, I'll name it something that reminds me of him. So he's never really gone." "That sounds like a good life." "Yeah," Riley said. "It does." They sat together in companionable silence, two warriors keeping watch until the eastern sky began to lighten with the approach of dawn. The attack came with the sunrise. Nathan saw them first. 4 riders approaching at a steady pace from the east. Not 20 this time, just 4. Garrison Cole Briggs and 2 others Nathan didn't recognize. "They're here," Nathan called out. The house erupted into action, everyone to their positions, rifles ready, the careful choreography they had practiced now put into motion with real stakes. Nathan positioned himself at the second-floor window with the best sight line. Evelyn took the position to his right, Riley on his left. Below Beth, Julia and Grace covered the ground floor approaches. The 4 riders stopped at the edge of rifle range. Garrison sat his horse with the same arrogant calm he had shown before, though Nathan could see changes. The man looked older, thinner. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by trail clothes. This was not the criminal kingpin secure in his power. This was a hunted man with nothing left to lose. "Evelyn Wright," Garrison called out. "I'm going to make this very simple. Come out now and I'll let the others live. Refuse and I burn this house to the ground with everyone in it." "He's bluffing," Julia said from below. 4 men can't surround us, can't cut off the tunnel. He's desperate." Nathan studied Garrison's face through his rifle scope. Julia was right. This was not a tactical assault. This was a man driven by rage and wounded pride, making one last attempt to salvage his destroyed ego. Evelyn stood at the window where Garrison could see her. "You have no power here anymore, Theodore. Your empire is gone. Your friends have abandoned you. You're just a murderer running from justice." "I still have this," Garrison said, gesturing to the 3 men with him. "And I still have nothing to lose. Last chance, Miss Wright." "Then I guess we do this the hard way," Evelyn said, and ducked back from the window. Garrison raised his hand, signaling his men. But before they could act, Marshal Hayes and 10 federal marshals emerged from the tree line behind them, rifles raised. "Theodore Garrison," Hayes called out, "you are under arrest. Dismount and put your hands in the air." Garrison spun his horse, realizing he was trapped between the house and the marshals. His face went through the same cycle of emotions Nathan had seen before: shock, rage, calculation, then acceptance. "I'm not going back to that cell," Garrison said. His voice was calm, almost peaceful, like a man who had made his final decision. He reached for his gun. 3 shots rang out simultaneously, Nathan's from the house, Hayes's from behind, and a third from somewhere else. Margaret Garrison stepped from the forest smoke rising from her rifle. She had been hiding, waiting, knowing her husband would come. All 3 bullets found their mark. Garrison jerked in his saddle, blood blooming on his chest, shoulder, and leg. He swayed, then toppled from his horse, landing in the snow with a soft thump. Cole Briggs and the 2 other men threw down their weapons immediately. They were mercenaries, not believers. With Garrison down, they had no reason to fight. The marshals moved in quickly, securing the prisoners. Nathan lowered his rifle and turned to Evelyn. She was staring out the window, her face unreadable. "It's over," Nathan said quietly. "It's truly over." Evelyn nodded slowly. Then her legs gave out, and she sank to the floor, great shaking sobs racking her body. Nathan dropped beside her, pulling her close. She clung to him like a drowning woman, crying for Michael, for herself, for all the fear and rage and grief she had been holding back for 2 years. Around them the house filled with similar sounds, Beth weeping in Grace's arms, Julia's shoulders shaking as she finally allowed herself to feel. Even Riley, fierce Riley, had tears streaming down her face. They had won, but the victory felt less like triumph and more like exhaustion. Nathan held Evelyn until her tears subsided. Then he helped her to her feet and led her downstairs. Outside, Hayes was directing his men. Garrison lay in the snow, still breathing but unconscious. A doctor was working on him, though, from the amount of blood, Nathan doubted the man would survive the day. Margaret stood apart from the others, staring at her husband with an expression Nathan couldn't read. Not satisfaction, not grief, just emptiness. "Is he dead?" Margaret asked as Nathan approached. "Not yet, but soon, I think." Margaret nodded. "Good. I want him to face trial. I want everyone to hear what he did, what he was. Death is too easy, too quick." But Theodore Garrison never made it to trial. He died 3 hours later, bleeding out from his wounds despite the doctor's efforts. His last words whispered to Hayes were an admission of guilt, a confession to 17 murders and dozens of other crimes. Hayes made sure those words were documented, witnessed, legally binding. Even in death, Garrison would not escape justice. They buried him in an unmarked grave on the edge of Nathan's property. No ceremony, no words, just a hole in the ground and a man who had caused so much suffering finally silenced forever. Margaret did not attend the burial. She had already left, riding back to Denver to begin the work she had planned, creating a refuge for women escaping abuse, using Garrison's fortune to fund it, turning his legacy of cruelty into something good. The 5 widows stood at the graveside, looking down at the plain wooden coffin. Riley spat on it. Beth turned away without a word. Julia made a note in her ever-present notebook documenting one final fact. Grace said a prayer not for Garrison's soul but for his victims. Evelyn stood between Nathan and the grave, her hand in his. "I thought I'd feel something," she said. "Relief, triumph, something, but I just feel tired." "That's because revenge doesn't heal," Nathan said. "It just ends things. Healing comes after." "How long does it take?" "I don't know. I'm still figuring that out myself." That night they had a small ceremony in the living room of Blackwood Ranch. Marshal Hayes officiated, having been ordained online specifically for this purpose. Grace and Riley stood as witnesses. Beth and Julia provided music, singing softly. Nathan Mercer and Evelyn Wright were married by firelight, surrounded by the family they had chosen. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate vows, no grand promises, just two people standing together choosing to hope. When Hayes pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Evelyn with all the tenderness and relief and joy he had been holding back. And when they separated, both had tears streaming down their faces. "About time," Riley said, and everyone laughed. They celebrated with Grace's finest cooking, roast venison from Nathan's hunt, vegetables from the cellar, fresh bread and berry preserves, wine that Margaret had sent as a wedding gift. As the evening wore on and the wine flowed, the tension that had gripped them for months finally began to ease. They talked about the future, about plans and dreams and possibilities. Riley spoke about rebuilding her ranch, about honoring Daniel by creating something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. Beth mentioned she had been writing letters to a widower doctor in the next county, tentative, careful letters about loss and healing. Julia talked about her book, a financial guide for women teaching them how to protect themselves from predatory men like Garrison. Grace simply smiled and said she was exactly where she wanted to be. And Nathan and Evelyn, newly married, talked about spring, about planting a garden, about expanding the horse breeding program, about building something that would last. They did not talk about children. Not yet. Some hopes were too fragile to speak aloud. Winter passed into spring. The snow melted, revealing brown earth that gradually turned green. The ranch came alive with new growth. Riley's breeding program produced 3 healthy foals. Beth's medical practice expanded, serving women from 3 counties. Julia's book was published and became surprisingly popular. Grace's kitchen fed a steady stream of neighbors and travelers, and Nathan and Evelyn settled into married life with the ease of people who had already survived the worst and found each other on the other side. In April, Evelyn discovered she was pregnant. She told Nathan on the porch during their morning coffee ritual, the same place they had shared so many conversations, so many quiet moments of connection. "I'm terrified," Evelyn admitted, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "What if something goes wrong? What if I lose the baby, like you lost Claire?" Nathan set down his coffee and pulled her close. "Then we'll grieve together and survive together. But we won't let fear steal our joy. This child deserves to be celebrated, not feared." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "You're right. You're always right." "Not always, but I'm learning." The other women were overjoyed at the news. Grace immediately began knitting tiny clothes. Beth consulted her medical books, determined to ensure a safe pregnancy and delivery. Julia started planning for the financial needs of raising a child. Riley, with characteristic directness, simply hugged Evelyn and said, "About damn time." As autumn painted the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, the ranch prepared for a new arrival. They converted one of the upstairs bedrooms into a nursery. Nathan built a cradle from cherry wood, polishing it until it gleamed. The house buzzed with excited energy, everyone contributing to the preparation. Nathan found himself thinking about Claire more during these months. The daughter he had lost would have been 13 now, probably tall like her mother, with Anna's smile and his stubbornness. He would never stop missing her, never stop wondering who she might have become. But he could honor her memory by being the best father possible to this new child, by being present, by choosing not to let fear keep him from loving fully. In November, exactly 1 year after the first battle for Blackwood Ranch, Evelyn went into labor. It was a long and difficult birth lasting nearly 20 hours. Nathan stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, trying to give her strength when her own seemed exhausted. Beth attended the birth with calm confidence, her medical training put to good use. Grace supported Evelyn's back during contractions. Riley and Julia waited anxiously downstairs, unable to help, but unwilling to be far away. Finally, as dawn broke on a cold November morning, a baby's cry filled the house. Nathan felt tears streaming down his face as Beth placed a tiny, red-faced, utterly perfect baby girl in Evelyn's arms. "Anna," Evelyn whispered, looking up at Nathan for confirmation. "We agreed on Anna if it was a girl." Nathan could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak. To name their daughter after his first wife felt right, felt like a bridge between past and present, between loss and hope. "Anna Claire Mercer," Evelyn said, completing the name, "for the two you lost and the one we found." Nathan leaned down to kiss his wife's forehead, then gently touched his daughter's impossibly small hand. She gripped his finger with surprising strength, and he felt something in his chest expand until it hurt in the best possible way. This was why Jeremiah had left him this place. This was why 5 widows had appeared on his doorstep asking for shelter. This was why he had chosen to fight rather than run. For this moment. This perfect, impossible, beautiful moment of new life emerging from so much death. The other women crowded into the room, taking turns holding the baby, marveling at her tiny fingers and toes. Even Riley, usually so tough and pragmatic, melted at the sight of the infant. "She has your eyes," Riley told Evelyn. "And his stubborn chin," Grace said with a laugh. "God help us all." They spent the day in celebration, Grace cooking a feast, despite her exhaustion, everyone taking turns helping with the baby or supporting Evelyn. The house rang with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the violence it had witnessed a year before. That night, after the celebrations had wound down and the others had retired to their rooms, Nathan sat in the nursery with his daughter sleeping in his arms. Evelyn dozed in the bed nearby, exhausted but peaceful. Nathan looked down at Anna, studying her face in the lamplight. She looked like Evelyn with the same delicate features and dark hair. But he could see echoes of his first Anna, too, in the shape of her ears and the curve of her brow. "You're named for 2 remarkable women," Nathan whispered to his sleeping daughter. "The first Anna was your namesake, my first wife. She was kind and fierce and would have loved you beyond measure. The second Claire was your half-sister, though she died before you were born. She was curious and brave and full of laughter." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Your mother is the strongest person I've ever known. She survived things that would have broken most people. She fought when fighting seemed hopeless. She loved when love seemed impossible. You couldn't ask for a better example of how to live." Nathan shifted the baby gently in his arms. "I'm going to make mistakes as your father. I'll be overprotective because I lost a daughter before. I'll worry too much because I know how fragile life can be. But I promise you this, I will always fight for you. I will always protect you, and I will always make sure you know you are loved." Evelyn's voice came soft from the bed. "She'll know. How could she not with a family like this?" Nathan looked over at his wife, smiling. "You should be sleeping." "So should you." Evelyn patted the bed beside her. "Bring her here. Let us all rest together." Nathan carefully transferred Anna to the cradle beside the bed, then climbed in next to Evelyn. She curled against him, and he wrapped his arms around her, feeling more complete than he had in years. "This is it, isn't it?" Evelyn murmured sleepily. "This is the life we fought for." "This is it," Nathan agreed. "It's better than I imagined." "Me too." They drifted to sleep as the baby slept beside them. 3 lives intertwined, past and present and future woven together with threads of hope. The months that followed were filled with the beautiful chaos of new parenthood. Anna grew from a tiny newborn into a baby with personality, her cries demanding and her smiles radiant. The women took turns helping Evelyn with the endless work of infant care, creating a support system that made the difficult task manageable. Nathan split his time between ranch work and fatherhood, learning to change diapers with the same efficiency he had once learned to field strip a rifle. He walked the floor with Anna when she was colicky, singing old war songs his mother had taught him, simplified and softened for a child's ears. Spring returned to the Colorado mountains, bringing green grass and wildflowers. The ranch prospered. Riley's horse breeding program was already attracting buyers from 3 states. Beth's medical practice had expanded to include a small clinic building Nathan had helped construct. Julia's second book was in the works. Grace's cooking had become so famous that people planned trips around the chance to eat at Blackwood Ranch. They had become a true family, bound not by blood but by choice and shared struggle. 6 adults and 1 baby living in a house that had once echoed with loneliness but now rang with life. On a warm April evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Nathan stood on the porch with Anna in his arms. She was 5 months old now, able to hold her head up and make delighted gurgling sounds at the world around her. Evelyn joined them, slipping her arm around Nathan's waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Nathan said. "A year and a half ago, I was alone in this house, convinced my life was over. Now look at us. Jeremiah would be proud. I think he is proud. Wherever he is, I think he's watching and smiling." Anna reached for Evelyn, and Nathan transferred her to her mother's arms. The baby immediately grabbed a handful of Evelyn's hair, tugging with uncoordinated enthusiasm. "She has your grip," Nathan observed. "Strong and stubborn. She's a Mercer woman. She'll need to be strong." Evelyn's expression grew serious. "The world isn't kind to women even now, but she'll have us to teach her, to show her that strength comes in many forms. And that family protects its own," Nathan added. "Always." Behind them the house came alive with evening sounds. Riley calling to the horses, Beth humming as she organized her medical supplies, Julia reviewing account books at the kitchen table, Grace rattling pots and pans in preparation for dinner. This was home. Not the building, though Nathan had come to love every patched bullet hole and scarred timber, but the people, the laughter and arguments and shared meals, the everyday moments that added up to a life worth living. "Is it strange," Evelyn asked, "that I'm happy after everything we lost, everything we survived? Sometimes I feel guilty for being this content." "I used to feel that way," Nathan admitted, "like happiness was a betrayal of Anna and Claire. But I think I had it backward. The best way to honor the dead is to live fully, to find joy despite the pain, to create new love without forgetting the old." Evelyn leaned her head against his shoulder. "When did you become so wise?" "When I married a woman smarter than me." "Flattery will get you everywhere." "I certainly hope so." They laughed together, the sound blending with Anna's babbling and the evening bird song. It was an ordinary moment, a small joy, the fabric of a life well lived. Nathan thought of all the battles he had fought both in war and in defense of this place. He thought of the men he had killed, the violence he had witnessed, the scars he carried both visible and hidden. And he thought about whether it had all been worth it. Looking at Evelyn and Anna, hearing the sounds of family all around him, he knew the answer. Every moment of pain, every drop of blood, every sleepless night had led him here. To this porch, to this evening, to this family. And he would do it all again in a heartbeat if it meant arriving at this exact point. The sun sank below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Stars began to emerge one by one like promises written in light. Nathan pulled his wife and daughter close, sheltering them from the evening chill. Around them, Blackwood Ranch settled into peaceful quiet. The house that had survived siege and sorrow now stood as testament to something more powerful than violence. It stood as testament to survival, to healing, to the choice made every day to keep living despite every reason not to. To the families we find after the families we're born with are gone. To the love that grows in scarred ground. To second chances and new beginnings and the stubborn refusal to let tragedy have the final word. Inside, Grace called that dinner was ready. Riley laughed at something Julia said. Beth hummed while setting the table. The ordinary sounds of home, of family, of life continuing in all its messy, beautiful glory. Nathan kissed Evelyn's forehead, then Anna's. "Come on," he said. "Let's go inside. Our family's waiting." They walked through the door together into warmth and light, and the sound of voices raised in laughter. The door closed behind them, shutting out the dark ceiling in the warmth. And in the mountains beyond, the first stars of evening watched over Blackwood Ranch, where 6 adults and 1 baby had learned that sometimes the greatest victory is simply surviving long enough to find happiness again. The story of Theodore Garrison was over. The story of Nathan Mercer and Evelyn Wright and the family they had built was just beginning. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the battles fought or the enemies defeated, but the life that continued after. the love that grew in spite of loss, the hope that persisted even when hope seemed impossible. They had been broken. They had been lost. They had been convinced that the best parts of their lives were behind them, but they had been wrong. The best parts were right now, right here, in this house filled with laughter and love and the promise of tomorrow. And that Nathan thought as he sat down to dinner with his family was worth everything.